This presentation is about supply-side policies and how they work together with demand-side policies in order to allow the economy to grow in the long run. Aggregate supply means the productive capacity of the economy, that is, how much the economy can actually produce. Productive capacity depends on many things, such as how many machines or factories there are in our economy, that is, our capital stock. What is the level of education of our workers? How efficient are they? And how many natural resources do we have available, or how many natural resources can we buy from the outside world? So capital stock, level of education, amount of natural resources, in other words, the availability of factors of production is what affects our productive capacity. Now, supply-side policies are those policies that are aimed at increasing productive capacity. This is the definition of supply-side policies. So a supply-side policy is any policy that aims to increase the productive capacity of the economy. How do we do this? Well, obviously the productive capacity depends on factors of production largely. So typically we increase the quantity of the factors of production, or we can increase their quality. This is the basic way of understanding supply-side policies. So let's see an example of both of these in action. Let's take labor. We can increase the quantity of labor in our economy by allowing more easy immigration from the outside world. As for the quality of the labor, we can invest in education and training, and this will make our workforce, hopefully, more efficient. So immigration, education, and training are all ways of increasing the quantity and quality of labor, and therefore all of them count as supply-side policies. A supply-side policy with respect to land would be to look for new natural resources, for example, exploring for oil on our own territory. Also, developing existing natural resources would count as a supply-side policy with respect to land. We may want to, for example, build a dam using a river that already exists on our territory. And using building the dam will help generate electricity from the river. Let's turn to capital. In order to increase the quantity of capital, we have to encourage investment by firms. How do we do this? Well, many governments give what are called capital allowances to their firms. When firms invest in machinery, the money they spend on the machinery can be subtracted from their taxable profits. So firms actually pay less tax when they buy new machines. This means that the cost of the machines is actually cheaper because of the tax saving. And this is one way we encourage an increase in the quantity of capital in the economy. When it comes to the quality of capital, we need to encourage innovation and improvements in technology. One way of doing this is having a system of patents. A patent is a legal protection on an idea, so that if an inventor or an innovator comes up with a new idea, a new piece of technology, they can claim it as their own and take a patent on it, which means that any profits coming from that technology will not have to be shared with other people and will increase the wealth of the innovator. So by a system of patents, we can encourage innovation which improves the quality of the capital. So the thing to say about supply-side policies is that they actually take quite a long time to have an effect. As we have seen with our examples, immigration may happen quite quickly, but the other supply-side policies such as education, allowing a system of patents, encouraging investment in the economy, and looking for new natural resources, these all take time, and we may not actually be able to increase the productive capacity of the economy very quickly. It may take several years, and this is one of the characteristics of supply-side policies. However, without supply-side policies, economies cannot grow in the long run. This is the crucial thing to understand. We must have supply-side policies if we are to make sure that our economies continue to grow in the long run. And we can see this by looking at this diagram of aggregate supply and aggregate demand. What we can see here is that we are shifting the aggregate demand curve to the right, but we are doing so when the economy is already close to its maximum short-run full capacity. So when we do this, the output level doesn't rise very much because we're only shifting the AD curve, and there's no room for the economy to produce any more, seeing as it's almost at its full capacity. However, what is happening is that the price level is rising very quickly. So we can see that if we only use demand-side policies to shift the AD curve to the right, this will cause demand pull inflation without a lot of economic growth. And this is, of course, not what we want. We want the economy to grow even in the long run. This can only be achieved if we move the short-run aggregate supply curve to the right. And this is what supply-side policies are designed to do. They're designed to increase the productive capacity of the economy, and this is shown on a graph by shifting the aggregate supply curve to the right. If we manage to do this while also shifting the aggregate demand curve to the right with demand-side policies, we can see clearly that the output of the economy can increase without causing an increase in the price level. Now, of course, we can't guarantee that the price level will stay exactly the same because it's difficult to make sure that the AD curve and the AS curve shift by exactly the same amount or the correct amount over the correct period of time. So there's no absolute guarantee that there will be no inflation, but there will be an increase in output. In reality, the coordination between demand and supply-side policies is quite difficult. Demand-side policies are generally quite fast-acting, whereas supply-side policies, as we have said before, take a much longer time to have an effect. Immigration, education, innovation, all of these things take time to occur in the economy. So there's a real problem when managing the economy, which is coordinating supply and demand side policies. The AD curve can be made to shift quite quickly to the right, whereas it is much more difficult to shift the AS curve. The AS curve shifts much more slowly. So another problem that we have in keeping the economy on track is not just because the AD curve and the AS curve move at different speeds, but from time to time we also have economic shocks which disturb our economy, such as, for example, the oil price suddenly going up, or a country to whom we sell exports suddenly going into recession and us finding that they can't really buy so many of our exports. So these economic shocks happen from time to time, and they may actually cause the curves to move in the opposite direction to the direction that we would want them to move in. So if we are trying to shift the aggregate supply curve to the right, an economic shock such as a rise in the oil price may actually shift it to the left. And a recession in a trading partner country may actually mean that the aggregate demand curve shifts to the left as our exports fall. So we have to compete with these economic shocks, as well as the fact that the supply curve and demand curve move at different speeds when we try to shift them. So all in all, supply-side policies are aimed at increasing either the quantity or the quality of the factors of production that we have available in our economy. It is essential that we use supply-side policies to achieve long-run economic growth without meeting the barrier of inflation. And this is the real role that supply-side policies play in our economy. So the essential thing is to coordinate aggregate supply-side policies with aggregate demand-side policies. But in reality, this is made very difficult by a range of factors, including the different speeds with which these policies work, and also the intermittent economic shocks that any economy suffers.